Alright, what's up guys? I'm going to be doing hopefully a pretty quick video, and it's going to be quite simple. So I'm going to be ranking, or I guess categorizing um, the maps that you should and should not play Hog on, right? So for starters, what you're looking for with Hog is generally maps that have a lot of different angles, right? So maps that primarily feature one just giant alleyway are very bad, because you just like don't have a surprise factor on those maps. And just getting shot by 5 players makes it basically impossible for you to do anything, right? And also gives your teammates like also very few opportunities to create angles, which is like not good for Hog's playstyle at all. Um, Secondly, um, you want there to be a combination of a lot of close angles and a lot of medium to long range angles, right? So if all of the angles on our map are really close range, or if they're all really like long range, they're bad, right? Because you either are susceptible to getting rushed down, or you're susceptible to just like take a million poke damage before you walk in position to actually accomplish anything. Um, yeah, well, whereas if you have a good combination of both, um, you can often play around certain parts of the map depending on the matchup of the enemy team, as well as using cover to like surprise people, right? On if there are a lot of short angles that you can easily switch up between to surprise people. And third, um, maps where you don't have to always play directly on the objective are very valuable, right? For starters, obviously you can surprise people much more easily if you're not forced always on objective, right? Like for example, to push it, right? So just getting intro picks for your team is really valuable. And secondly, right, Hog is just not a very good tank at like stalling objectives. Quite frankly, he has no mobility. He's really easy or susceptible to getting just like stunned if he's like in a bad spot, right? And objective usually isn't like in a great spot cover wise, especially some cards are kind of like, which I'm gonna like consider in some rankings of the maps here. If like the objective has low cover, or just if it's yeah, susceptible to like, or if it's in the open space a lot, it's hard to even play objective a lot of times, right? Unless you're already winning the fight in some other aspect, right? So yeah. Yeah, and like I guess thirdly, kind of as like a addition kind of to the first and second point, right? If you can stage the fight in a more favorable position to yourself, and play forward, for example, and go for early picks, right? Without giving up objective, right? For example, if you're playing on like King of the Hill, whatever it's called in this game exactly, control point maybe, where you can cap and just like leave point and just fish for picks over and over again and fall back to point at the last second. Like that's really valuable, right? Yeah, that kind of goes into the first point, but yeah. Um, yeah, so with that being said, um, I'll probably go like, I guess, like case by case. I'll rename this one. I'll call this one, and I guess the good thing about this list is like if you see like the map voting, now that map voting is a thing, right? You should try to avoid the maps that are lower on the list, and you'll see why I'm naming this this. Um, and vote for the maps that are higher on the list, right? So for starters, right, Circle Royale, it's just like a giant tunnel for the most part, right? First point is literally just like a giant one sightline um, map for the most part, right? Like there are some flanks, but they take forever to go on. The cart's small, and unfortunately, because there's not a lot of cover on the map, you're kind of stuck on cart, which is really easy to shoot around, right? I guess second point is the only point that's okay, especially on defense. I mean, third's not terrible on defense, just because you can actually hook people on the rotation from low ground, like up the I don't know, trackway, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but besides that, like first is like horrible, and it's really awful to play into like poke comps on this map. Because like you're just gonna get shot by 5 players, can't do anything, right? So like if you're not a true Hog OTP, I'd swap Sigma on this map. Maybe Zarya would work. Even though she's also like really quite bad. She's worse than Hog into hit scans, quite honestly. Um, but depending on map ban or like character bans, you can make it work, right? If they're banning like Sig and Widow, honestly, Sig isn't the biggest problem, but if like they ban like Widow, Freya, um, Zen, maybe, like you can definitely make them work, but it's just like way more effort than it's worth. Oh yeah, and also like maps with really, I guess, discrete high grounds, right? For example, like Dorado can be quite challenging a lot of times for Hog to like push on offense, but on defense they can be good because you have like a ton of opportunities to go for hooks, right? And you can be pretty safe from like the vast majority of the cast if you just play high ground, right? You just have a ton of opportunities to go for hooks, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'd say Dorado is going to start, and these are not in any particular order, right? I have no clue why he keeps doing that. It's kind of annoying. Anyways, Dorado I'd say is pretty bad. Like I'd avoid Hog on this map or avoid picking him. First, the reason is like, yeah, like you can sometimes affect the high grounds on offense, um, but like sometimes you can't. You have no choice but to take these really long rotations. On first point, for example, or on second point, the sight lines are just so long that like it's really difficult to do anything except play cart. Um, on offense, of course, right? And on defense, right, you just don't, because of the map design, you don't have the ability to really stall cart against the vast majority of comps that are going to be around on this map, right? So, yeah. Payload, obviously, so not so great for Hog, right? Not something I'm really looking forward to, but yeah. It's really just second point that's bad on offense. First and third are kind of doable, not great. Third's a little like enclosed, kind of like susceptible to more brawl than first and second for sure, which can be kind of challenging to find good angles there because like there's not a lot of opportunities for you to go in different paths, right? But it's workable. Havana, I think just barely stays out of mental illness because there are some flank routes now with the map being reworked. First is pretty bad, not quite as bad as Circle Royale first, in my opinion. Um, and the card in Havana is like quite large and pretty easy to take cover on. But yeah, I mean, first isn't good on offense or defense. Third is like workable on defense if you just play inside the castle. Second is kind of like it's okay on both offense and defense, right? I think that's the saving grace of this map. Why it's not horrible. It's definitely still not a map I'd want to play on, right? So, Junkertown actually I don't think is that difficult. The first point is going to suck, but besides that, it's actually not that bad. I'm going to say it's only conditionally difficult, depending on what the enemy team is running, right? And of course, the exact point, right? So the cart isn't like huge, but it's like workable. It's surprisingly like good cover. Um, yeah, it's the second point and third point are like both fairly good, right? There's a lot of flank options. I wouldn't say flank, but there are a lot of like angle opportunities on second in particular. On third, it's kind of like Gibraltar or Dorado, where you can just sit high ground and just like keep trying to pick people off over and over again, right? Which is good for you. And the high ground isn't so extreme, and the rotation isn't so long that it takes forever to get to, right? You have a decent amount of cover, and you can pretty easily hook people. It's definitely not max range if they decide to peek you, right? So it's really just first point that's bad on this map. It's workable on defense. Offense can be kind of challenging. But granted, in higher elo, you usually are getting free card push up to like that corner anyways, where it's in one fight territory to begin with, right? So quite frankly, I don't know if you guys can hear that part. My mic flew off my headset, so yeah. Anyways, yeah, it really is just first point that's like any particular challenge. But besides that, it's like not the end of the world. Let's see here. Rialto, again, like it's not that much of a problem. First, choke can be kind of difficult to push through, right? Right at that like building with a high ground inside and with like the statue or whatever in the middle can be somewhat challenging. Last can be somewhat challenging to push into, especially like inside the building. But besides that, the map isn't like that bad, right? And getting your team across like the bridge on offense, like if your team comp is just quite bad, can be challenging, right? Just like if you're not running snipers and you just have a widow sitting in like the back of the map, because you literally just can't do anything. You just have to hope your team um, just passes and just doesn't die, because you literally just can't interact with the widow for like 30 seconds. On defense, like it's pretty free, right? Again, you can just kind of sit on high ground inside the building on second. On third, kind of the same thing, right? If you stop them at the slope, you can just sit inside or sit around cart and just like continuously try to hook backline. And like playing third last is also like not too bad, because if you just play like left side or right side, you can pretty easily contest pretty much everything except the opposite side flank, right? So it's all right. Let's see here, Route 66. I'd say it's also going to go in this tier here. Yeah, not much to say about this map, right? You see a recurring theme with a lot of payload maps, right? Playing cart sucks, but you're like kind of forced to do it a lot of times in offense. And there's usually like 1 or 2 pain points on offense, which are kind of problematic to push through. But defense is pretty much like smooth sailing as long as you set up right. Like on Route 66, you can just set up high ground on the gas station or on like the building on second, or like on that, I don't even know what it's called, like I don't know what else to call it, the high ground on the slope on third. Just keep trying to like pick off backline and like stall card from there. It's usually pretty safe. I guess the main problem is on like first. Sometimes if like you're on a bad comp, it can be hard to like cross into the open space if you don't have any range on your team. And on second, it can also be kind of problematic to push in initially, because like the sight lines can be kind of long and you have to go for like kind of a, depending on the comp, of course, and the exact timing, you might have to like kind of flank for a bit inside like the mega room and then get underneath the building or whatnot. But you definitely do have a fair amount of options to go like off angle and flank on this map, so it's definitely workable. You definitely have a fair amount of like opportunities to get off card on this map. Shambali, I think this map is just kind of hard on offense a lot of times. There are a lot of like kind of choky areas, but it's kind of like pretty decent on defense because of that, right? And especially on that high ground on second, it's kind of like circuit, where you can just like pick people off in the back line over and over again. And if they're not on the right comp, they like are gonna really struggle to cross. Yeah, pushing third kind of sucks. Honestly, pushing this map kind of is anything. Any like ground tank can kind of suck. Well, I guess it's a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, it's probably slightly hard to push on this map as Hog, unless you just kind of like team wipe them at the right times. It's because the map can be very choky on offense, but I don't think it's like too terrible. Third's also quite open, but it's not terrible because at least the card's fairly large, right? On third, it's in your favor to play card, but on second, it can be hard because the card's so big, kind of ironically. Watch point, this map is one that you're gonna kind of suck on offense on, but it usually depends because of the comps that are played in this map, right? You're gonna get a ton of opportunities to get a pick, and it kind of only takes one pick for you to like cap out on points in this map, right? I mean, obviously it's a bit of a simplification. Depending on the team comp, right, it can be hard. But usually if you run into like more meta comps, it's not that bad in offense, and you can still hook people high ground from low ground a lot of the times. But the good thing on this map is on defense, because the high grounds are like so extreme, you get like a billion opportunities to try to hook backline, which is really good. Third point defense isn't like that great, and it can be kind of challenging to push into, but it's usually like not too terrible. Okay. I think these are called the green ones. I think they're called hybrid, where it's like control point first and payload for the rest. And it's kind of the same as payload, just in total, where you're kind of stuck on card a lot of times. I'm pretty much like, I'm probably not going to say too much about this map, right? As well as a lot of the other hybrid maps because they all kind of are the same as payload maps, honestly. Um, you often just have like some high grounds that you can interact with. And if as long as they're not too extreme, the sightlines aren't too extreme in general, like you can do all right on offense and defense, depending on the comp, right? So yeah, not much to say about Blizzard World, right? I think the only real pain point is on second, the sightlines can be kind of difficult to cross on offense, depending on your team comp. But besides that, like it's not that big of a deal. This map, Icon, same thing, right? First choke can be kind of annoying to get through, depending on the team comp. You might just have to run into this small building on the left and just stage from there. As if you bait out a few cooldowns first, and obviously you can like speed or like sim through it. Attacking on second can be quite difficult sometimes because the high ground is fairly extensive and you can't necessarily always reach if they're like on the far side and you're just starting to push through the choke point. Um, but at the same time, like playing inside the building and forcing people away, you have a lot of different angles you can take inside the building or the castle, whatever you want to call it. And it's pretty flexible, so it's not like the end of the world. Actually, I think ironically, third point's the hardest to push at times because it's so enclosed. You just don't have a lot of room to move around, and it's like so linear that like you just can't really do much sometimes. Um, Hollywood, kind of the same as Icon. Um, yeah, I mean it's it really is almost like a carbon copy of the map, layout wise. Like you have a one big choke on first that you have to get through. On second, there's like a pretty extreme high ground, which is like passable on offense, but kind of like annoying for the enemy team when you're on defense. And on third, it's like really linear and hard for you to do stuff at times, right? Because the sight lines can be like just long hallways, but it's like not that extreme for the most part. I actually think Kings Row, like higher elo, is actually kind of bad for Hog. First point is like really open. There's like not a lot of flexibility with flanking on it either. Um, and the entire map's just one tunnel with like no realistic flank points for you to take without like a life lever or something. I mean, it's really that simple. It's just like one giant tunnel and it's really quite enclosed, and like a lot of the sightlines are really short, so you just are very liable to just get rushed. A third's kind of the exception when you like turn the corner to like go down the slope into the capture point for third. There's a lot of like really long sightlines. I wouldn't say they're like super long, but like they just have like a widow and a tank that's AFK cart. You like literally can't do anything sometimes, right? You just have to like sometimes it's hard flank to like make something happen. Um, of course, I haven't really like discussed it yet. This is the first map that really has like a good usable death pit. Um, yeah, the rest of these really don't. I mean, on I guess circuit, you can like push people off the map with your ult. I mean, you can do that on any map, but like that's the only map of these that I really ever do that on. Kings Row is like the first map with like a death pit on third, which like you can use and catch people off guard, but it's like not in the best spot. Um, and like you really are only going to have like one or two opportunities a game to do it realistically, just how the map plays out. Midtown, pretty bad. I mean, the map is just like really long sight lines pretty much everywhere. Second point defense is all right. Um, that's about it, right? It's otherwise like I don't think it's like horrible to play. First point can like suck because it's just one giant long tunnel and the flanks take forever. And even when you get in position on point, you just get like spammed out if you actually want to contest point. It's like kind of hard. It's kind of like the extend version of Kings Row, quite seriously, just like lengthened, I guess, where it's just quite linear, but not quite as bad as Circuit, right? Numbani, I think it's all right. I mean, it's a map with like high grounds, but you can interact with most of the high grounds. Especially on second, like second on offense or defense isn't too bad. First on offense, it's kind of like watch point where it's like annoying, but it's not as annoying because you don't have as many opportunities because it's just a single capture point. But yeah, really the only hard part about it is attacking first. Attacking third can be situationally difficult, but attacking first, you're kind of stuck either hard flanking or just like walking main and hoping someone just like falls in your crosshair, kind of. Pariso, this map's horrible, in general, and it's like, the first is really wide open. It sucks to defend still, unless you're kind of rolling. You can just sit on the bridge and pick people off over and over again, but that's not going to really like happen very often. Third kind of sucks. Second kind of sucks to attack, and it's not like amazing to defend. Yeah, I mean, like first is really like I'd say second and third are workable. Like they're not great, but workable. And first, like on offense and defense, is just kind of bad. Like the point is just so wide open, and like on offense, you just have nowhere to stand, nowhere to push in. On defense, there's just no cover on the point, and you just get spammed out really easily, and it's like you're just peeking and getting kills. I think in general, this red stuff, I think like King of the Hill or whatever control point, whatever it's called in this game, are for the most part like just quite playable. Um, I'll call them good. Yeah, good morning. I wouldn't say like Hog is a must pick on any map, right? I don't think he has a single map in the game where it's like, oh, if you're not running this character, you're trolling. Like, for example, if you're like playing like Diva or like Winston on Watchpoint, like those are pretty like strong characters on those maps, right? Where like it pretty much, I say like the vast majority of ground tanks are going to be like terrible on those maps. I think Hog's kind of exception, especially on defense. But like Hog doesn't really have any like stellar maps, and this is obviously like high elo. I think even well, like he's definitely not even close to being the best tank on well. There's just too many problems that he has as a character and playing objective for him to like be like exceptional, right? And like there's just like a lot of characters that can also like play to his strengths on maps where he's good, right? For example, on well, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but like Farah, Lucio, all can like really easily boot people in the well. They can run Weaver or whatever to save people, or they can just run characters that like are like functionally impossible to like kill off map, like Diva or something, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's a bit of a tangent here, but basically all these control point maps, right, or King of the Hill, whatever it's called again, you can cap and just play off point until like the last second when you're forced to contest, and just continuously try to get like early intro picks over and over again, right? They're often designed where they have a lot of like short range areas you can play around and medium to long range areas where you can like hook people cross map, get intro picks for your team and such. Yeah, so I'm gonna get all the ones that are like decent out of the way. If anything like comes to mind where like I really have to say something, I will. So let's see here. I think all of these 5 are like pretty good. Like you're probably never really gonna struggle because of the map. If anything, you're just like they're gonna run like Malga Rush or something, and that's gonna be like the problem. But it's not like the map. That's because you're on Hog, right, against like a really bad team comp for you to play into. Yeah, none of these maps are like particularly choky. Um, they have like a wide variety of like areas to play around, right? Yeah, I mean it's kind of that simple. Some of them even have death pits, like Ilios and Nepal have like really obvious death pits, right, where you can just off map people, which is quite strong, but it's like really easy to play around for the most part, right? I will say Busan has that one map that's really open. I think it's called Sanctuary, and it has that one map that's like really choky, the one with the high ground and the points like on low ground. Well, I mean, I guess it's the other two, right? But the one that's like really distinct, it has like the mega room underneath the high ground, right? That one, it can be kind of hard to walk sometimes, right? Because the sight lines are like quite long, but like the ways into the point are like really choky, and it's hard for you to walk at times. You can just get caught out by like like just stuffed in a choke by an Orisa, and the rotations are just so long that it's like hard to move sometimes. Lijiang, kind of a similar problem, right? I think as long as you're set up on point, it's usually or like around the point, you have point control, it's okay. But it can be hard to walk on. I think it's man, the inside one, I don't know what's called, with the server room, as well as the one with like the only 2 ways of getting. I think that one's on garden. The one with only two pathways into the control point. You're just easy to spam out when you have like really predictable ways of entering the point, and like you just can't rotate. So like once you're committed to a point, you just have to waste like 10 seconds rotating or just like hoping you walk through. Realistically, just walking through is or just rotating is often the better option because it's like less predictable, I guess, right? Um, I don't think Hog really struggles with any of these push maps. I think push is actually possibly Hog's best mode. Um, yeah, you can often just give up card sometimes, especially if you lead, and just like keep trying to pick people off over and over again as long as you're not giving checkpoint. Um, yeah, and like you just have a lot of flexibility in how you play objective in this mode. It's similar to King of the Hill, but the bot also gives you cover in this mode, right? So like I mean it doesn't give you health like it doesn't payload, but like just giving you cover, and it's like good, it's consistent cover, and it's good cover on every single one, right? It's the same bot and the same barrier. So like it's pretty good for you. Um, and the maps are often like really variable in how you can like take fights, right? I think the worst one for him is probably New Queen Street because the sight lines just tend to be the longest by just a bit on this map. But all these maps really have like a lot of variability in how you can approach fights and like how you can, I guess, how often you're stuck playing objective, right? It's definitely very possible on a lot of these to play forward, let one person on your team play objective, and then like fall back and swap with like whoever's playing objective and like do the right thing. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say in particular, but like I don't think the hog pick is ever going to be a problem on these. Similarly, I don't really think hog has a problem on Flashpoint. I think there's a lot of flexibility in how you take fights in Flashpoint too, right? The points tend to be fairly well covered, right? There's like a fair amount of places you can cover. I mean, in some of the maps, like some points in particular, can kind of suck. Um, like there's just so much flexibility in how you like actually do the intro fight, as well as like how you like move between points and like how you can catch people off guard in between points and just kind of win the fight for your team before the point even unlocks sometimes, right? That's really like valuable for you. It's kind of similar to push where like, yeah, you just have that flexibility. There's a good variety of sight lines and like options for you of like how to move through the map, right? It's not so rigid. Unlike you see a lot of these other maps. Um, I don't just, yeah, I don't think Hog is particularly good on um, any payload style map. I think he's like a workable, definitely like on a ton of them. I'd say like from here up, like I don't think Hog's a problem. On these maps, like you might want to swap unless you're hard OTPing Hog. I mean, he can definitely work on these maps, but like he's definitely gonna have like a lot of problem points. Whereas on pretty much everything above here, he's probably like the character pick itself is not gonna be this problem. In regards to the map, it's gonna be like in regards to what the enemy team is running, right? So of course, like conditionally, obviously, he can be like hard to run in some parts, but like for the most part, yeah, like I'd say this is a pretty good overview of like what maps to pick, right? So like here and above, like you should probably be picking these. Here and below, you probably should like stay away from these maps for the most part. Um, I guess as a brief overview, if you want to play these maps, right? Like I will say Havana, Kings Row, Midtown, Circuit, you could probably run Sig, right? And if you want to run Hog on Dorado and Priso and you're struggling, you could probably just run Diva or something, right? Those are probably your easiest and fewest options you could do. Um, and if you want to run Hog on these maps, right, you could look into banning like on the longer sightline maps like Havana, Midtown, Circuit. You could look into banning like um, Sig, Freya, Soj, Widow, Zen, stuff along those lines. Um, and on maps more like high ground esque, I'd say still on Dorado, you probably want to ban like hit scans for the most part. That's what you want to be mostly banning, right? And on maps like Kings Row, like obviously Orisa is gonna be a good ban on all of them, but especially on Kings Row, she's gonna be a good ban. Um, yeah, I think on Dorado, like the tank ban really doesn't matter. Honestly, kind of on Pre-so, it kind of also doesn't matter. I mean, I'd say tanks actually like kind of. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Yeah, in Preso and Dorado in particular, tank ban doesn't really make a difference. Hog just kind of can suck at like certain like specific parts of the map, and like it's kind of like a DPS problem, right? So, or support problem. So like just Anna, Freya, Sage, Widow, stuff like that. You'd be looking into banning, right? Depending on what your team's banning. Yeah. So, okay, I hope this helps.